Procurement people love acronyms. RFI, RFP, RFT, RFX. But you know what? If 3 letters is good, 4 letters is even better. So how about a 4-letter acronym, BAFO? Because that's 33 1/3% better. Have you come across BAFO, Elliot?
I think you could get excited about that, Paul. Yes, best and final offer, and I really want to discuss the F out of this. So what's your definition of final, Paul?
I think the clue's in the name, really, final. So the whole point about BAFO is that it is a final one-stage shot after any other processes whereby the bidders or the negotiators live or die on this one shot in order to reach a final decision. And that's what a BAFO should be, which is one opportunity in order to reach a solution.
So one opportunity is interesting because in my experience of working with pitches and deals and helping sales organisations, what happens is the tender's put in, then they come back and there's a bit of argy-bargy over clarification of details, and then there's a BAFO, and after the BAFO there's often a second BAFO, and then there's a third bite of the cherry where they come back and say we'd like to do a further auction or a further negotiation. So at what point is BAFO finished?
Well, we could be arguing about terms here, because if there is multiple rounds of negotiation in the BAFO, you could argue, well, the whole point is to reach agreement. So if you don't reach agreement straight away, you have to negotiate. So that might be multiple rounds in order to reach agreement.
Hold on, so you're saying final includes multiple rounds. Is this a final round or not?
You make an offer, I say, that's not what I'm looking for, and we negotiate. Instantly we're into at least one iteration. You make a counter offer, I say, well, that's not what I'm looking for, that's another round. So yes, until agreement is reached, this is the last opportunity to reach an agreement.
Right, so BAFO is completely screwed. There's no such thing as final. You just think it's a never-ending match that goes on for 10 sets. I mean, there's a heat law in place to protect players from that kind of activity so that they're not exhausted at the end of it. So salespeople get exhausted about these multiple rounds. And what I'm suggesting is that you give people your best offer, and then in that you might concede a very small amount to make sure that it's got a sweetener in it, or where you might give some advantage to the buyer, and that's it. Stop playing the game of multiple BAFOs, because if you want to keep coming back, there's no end to it. It's a never-ending story.
I think that's a helpful point. Both parties have to agree, when does this negotiation end? And my experience is that time can either be the enemy of a good deal, because it forces the parties to make concessions they wouldn't normally have made, or if the sales party in particular says, how many times are you going to have a bite at this cherry before you decided that that's enough, then perhaps it's up to the sales team to say, here is the end to the process, the cupboard is bare, and I'll live or die by this final offer.
That's right, because you've got to know from a sales point of view what your best offer is, and then you live and die by that. Don't get worried at the end. You've done your best job. You've done a great job of leading up to the tender. You've put your best foot forward. You've given them an additional sweetener at the end. At some point you have to say, that's it, and not fall into the trap of giving margin away at the end just because they ask for it.
And if the viewers want to learn more about the commercial relationships between buyers and sellers, where do they go, Elliot?
Well, they can book us to speak at their conference or to their teams, or get the book, Sales versus Procurement.